Well, I don't know the gentleman. I have heard him in the clip that has been online. Retired Lieutenant Douglas Deaton. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thank you for having me on.
Well, tell us, let's start from the beginning. We've got this planned Islamic mega center. They bought hundreds of acres, I believe, in East Plano, Texas. I'm quite familiar with Plano, Texas. Many years ago when I was a lawyer for Texas Instruments. I don't even know if it's still there. Plano was a budding suburb. You know, they had like 30,000 people. Now it's got, what does it have, 1 million? I don't know, but it's a lot. And so they decide to put this place right next to the sheriff's. I don't know. You explain. What is going on there?
Well, so the recent controversy is about a planned development in Collin County, which is the county where the city of Plano is located. The new development that we're talking about would be very large, with approximately 1,000 homes, and would effectively be its own autonomous zone. Now, that is not in the city of Plano, and to be very clear, they have not broken ground on it yet, even though they have purchased the land. The point that I was trying to make during my public commentary is that the East Plano Islamic Center, which is actually located in the city of Plano, on the east side of Plano, according to its name, it already exists. Many people seem to be misunderstanding that this was a plan to build an East Plano Islamic Center, but some people mistakenly believe that it had been stopped. And so I wanted to make sure that people understood, no, the East Plano Islamic Center already exists. There is a huge mosque there. There is already an existing neighborhood. There is a school there. There's a financing company there. And some of the things that are occurring in that place, I believe that most reasonable people of any faith could agree that those things are highly irregular.
Well, let me ask you this. Who's in charge of what has already taken place in the city of Plano? A particular imam?
So the leader of the resident scholar and leader of East Plano Islamic Center is a gentleman named Yasser, I believe, Mahdi. I may be mispronouncing his name. I apologize. But he is he's definitely the leader there. He's all over YouTube. He's all over the internet. He's extremely popular, and he's definitely the man in charge there. And so it's
what does he preach? His
last name is Qadi. Well, he is effectively the religious leader there. And
I guess what I'm saying is he preaching hate against America or hate against any other ethnic groups?
Well, I'll say this. What I have seen is that he, in the past, we know that he's said some things about trying to minimize the scope of the Holocaust. He's certainly very pro-Palestine and anti-Israel, at least according to what I've seen. Some of the things that I've seen are very disturbing. For example, they have a school at this location, and I've seen a video of very young children at this school chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. These are children in the second grade, and then other children in the second and third grade holding up their hand-drawn maps of Palestine in which the country of Israel does not exist. Mm-hmm. So I think one can draw their conclusions from that. The other things that I've seen information and evidence about is their close association with the Council on American Islamic Relations. They work with them very closely. Yeah, yes, CARE. They host CARE there quite often. They work with CARE. And the East Plano Islamic Center is still continuing to advocate for the release of a convicted terrorist who shot at and tried to kill American soldiers. So these are facts that are available to anyone. This is not conspiracy theory. This is not just mere accusations. These are simply facts.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there a connection between what already exists in Plano City and what they wish to build in Crawford County?
There absolutely is a connection. Yes, there is a connection, despite what many people are trying to convince others of. There is, for example, in their official statement, the East Plano Islamic Center claims that the Epic City project is operated by an organization named Community Capital Partners. And I'm quoting from their statement, which they say, quote, is a separate entity that Epic created. Any questions regarding the development project should be directed to Community Capital Partners. They say it's a private investment that is not affiliated with the Epic Masjid. Well, you know what's funny? You look at the videos on the East Plano Islamic Center's YouTube page, and they are the ones who are advertising and announcing this new city, Epic City, Epic Ranches. And also, Mark, I located the Securities and Exchange Commission Form D, Notice of Exempt Offering of Securities, for this planned development for Community Capital Partners, which is a for-profit organization in the state of Texas. And despite them saying that there is no connection, or that one has nothing to do with the other, would you like to guess what address and phone number they put on the SEC form? It's the same address and phone number as the mosque. And the three principles listed on the SEC documents are also associated with the East Plano Islamic Center. In fact, one of them is the treasurer for the East Plano Islamic Center. So any claims that there is no connection, that the existing East Plano Islamic Center has nothing to do with this planned development in Collin County, those claims simply do not only do they not pass the smell test, they don't withstand even basic scrutiny.
There's a lot of money involved in, building towns and cities and massive mosques and all the rest of it. Where do you think all this money's coming from? You just think they're passing around the plate and people are just donating? There tends to be a lot of outside money coming into groups like CARE, Students for Justice in Palestine, and all these other front groups. Right. Well, I wouldn't want to speculate exactly on where the money is coming from, but based on what we've seen in other similar situations, we know that a great deal of money has come into other Islamic organizations from overseas, from other countries. I don't know for sure where the money's coming from, but I'm convinced that the Texas Rangers and the investigators with the Texas Attorney General's office will eventually get to the bottom of that. Well, tell us about that. The governor heard about this, and what did he do? He ordered an investigation? That's my understanding, yes, sir. Obviously, I haven't been in contact with anybody at the governor's office, but my understanding is that once Governor Abbott learned about this planned development, and of course the subsequent public uproar over it, he ordered an investigation. My understanding is that multiple state investigative agencies are currently looking into this, and I believe there's also some significant concerns about the manner in which the property was acquired, how it has been transferred, and to whom it is being sold or offered to. I know that the attorney that the East Plano Islamic Center has hired to represent them, a very well outspoken pit bull type attorney, his claim is that the new development would be open to anyone of any faith. But as the Collin County judge himself said, that's not what their original documentation showed. It's certainly not how it was originally sold or publicized. Any reasonable person who looked at the way this thing was sold would be led to believe that only members of this mosque could actually live there. So let me ask you a question, our friend Lieutenant Douglas Deaton, retired. What are the people of Plano thinking about this? I really don't know. I can't speak for the people of Plano. I know that... but you heard from some of them, no doubt. Well, certainly, and in the recent meeting at Collin County Commissioners Court, I'm sure that some people there. But you had asked earlier how I first came to be aware of any of this, and that was way back in approximately 2013. I was the sergeant over the Plano Police Academy, which is located in East Plano. And before the mosque was even built, in fact, before almost any other house was built there, the very first structure that was completed in that neighborhood was built literally just a few feet from the training center where I worked. Really? And it was also, it's a massive house. It resembles a fortress more than it resembles a house. It has a very large second-story platform which directly overlooks
the controlled access parking lot where the Plano Police Department keeps all of its bomb equipment and bomb vehicles. And for a while there, we also stored some of our SWAT vehicles there. And I wasn't the only police officer who thought that was a little bit odd. The strange thing is there's a massive emergency.
Now, hold on. I don't want to, I want you to pick up in a moment where you're leaving. Okay, so you say it's odd. What do you make of it? Why are they doing that?
Well,
to keep tabs on the police?
Well, that's what many people believe that it was originally built for. Obviously, yeah. I can't say for certain what the intent is, but I can say
what do you think?
Well, my opinion is that the platform there certainly looks an awful lot like an observation post and possibly a shooting platform.
Wow.
That's exactly what it looks like. And again, I'm not the only person who thinks that. More to the point, Mark, I know I have a very trusted colleague who knows for a fact that that house is not constructed like any other normal single-family residence on the interior. It doesn't look like a regular single-family residence. It has two exterior front doors, which appear to be very, very serious doors, not the kind you would see in a house, but something more like in a commercial building. And I have been informed that the inside of that house on the first floor has numerous identical living quarters, almost like a hotel or a hostel, a place that you could keep a substantial number of people, almost like another friend of mine said it looked an awful lot like a safe house. Mm-hmm. Those are not my words, that's somebody else's words.
Well, let me ask you this. Is the town able to send, I mean, just from a zoning perspective, a bureaucratic perspective, aren't they able to take a look at this?
You know, one would think so. I will say this, Mark, you know, the city of Plano has a very, very detailed, I think it's like a 13-page ordinance about short-term rentals, but nobody seemed to have taken a look at any of this kind of stuff. We've turned a blind eye to some of these developments and some of these buildings, and I'm not making any accusations. I'm saying that there's clearly something out of the ordinary that has been occurring there for quite some time, and that it bears looking into.
I think so, and I think with the governor on the spot there and sending in state law enforcement, they'll be able to take a look at it. It's my understanding, I read that at least in the state of Texas, these kinds of Sharia towns are not permitted, and nor should they be, because the whole goal here is assimilation. It's not to create these separate enclaves where people have their own laws and so forth, no?
That's my understanding as well. I mean, it's one thing to have, obviously there are many different types of religious enclaves throughout America, but the difference here is that we're talking about an organization.
Yeah, but Sharia law, let me just say, you make a good point. Maybe there's an Italian community or a Jewish community, but they don't say their law is the law that you follow, not the American law. I don't know of any other group.
No, I don't either, Mark. And, you know, something else, that Islamic financing company that exists within this neighborhood, it's on their website that their purpose is to have financial transactions which are Sharia-compliant.
Amazing.
They're right there. It's out in the open. And guess where their headquarters is? It's in Michigan, about 15 minutes from Dearborn.
The epicenter.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Have you been concerned about your safety? Do you have any reason to be concerned about your safety since you brought so much attention to this?
Well, I've taken precautions. And again, Mark, I have a pretty robust background in law enforcement and SWAT and shooting and all of that. And my circle of friends are some of the most capable people in North America.
So don't screw with you.
Well, no, that would be really unwise. I don't seek out any conflict. I do not want any trouble at all. I'm not making any wild, bug-eyed accusations. I'm simply referring to evidence and information.
No, you've been very careful. Well, let me ask you this. So we talked about how you got interested, or really how this really came to you in many respects and so forth. Is this something you're retired that you're going to stay on top of and keep monitoring and keep talking about?
You know, I'm not really sure about that, Mark, because I'm not an activist. There's plenty of other activists out there. Right. These days, I run a consulting company, an investigations company, and I typically work as a litigation consultant and use of force expert. I mostly work on cases involving SWAT teams, police use of force, and firearms. So this is not something that I've spent a great deal of time on. I'm not obsessed with this, but I do think it's an important issue, and I just want to be sure that the investigators working on it, as well as the general public, are fully aware of the scope and the connections involved. That's all.
Do you happen to know, I don't know if people have contacted you, if this is going on elsewhere? Do you have any knowledge of that? In the state or the country?
In the city of Irving, Texas, which is also part of the DFW Metroplex, there's also another Islamic Center that was built immediately next door to the Irving Police Training Center.
Jeez.
And again, just like in Plano, the police training center there was in existence for quite some time before the Islamic Center was built next door to it. I know that several other law enforcement guys have contacted me, and we've all asked ourselves, how many other police departments and police training centers and secured police parking lots with critical equipment in it have also had strange buildings built immediately next to them that look an awful lot like an observation post? And we don't know the answer to that question.
So you've got Plano, you've got Irving. What is it about the Dallas-Fort Worth area that's the focus of this sort of thing? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, but obviously it's a very, it's an expanding area. I mean, it's a huge economy here. There's roughly 7 million people living here. If it was its own individual city, it'd be one of the biggest cities in North America. It's just split up into many different, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as you know. But it's been growing rapidly for many, many years. There's a lot of opportunity here, and there's a lot of room to develop and grow. And I think that attracts everybody. From all walks of life and many different faiths, and I think there's probably some opportunities for some of these groups as well.
And I'm wondering, though, but, I think for the average American like me, looking at this from a distance, I was not aware that there were so many Muslims that had settled in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I mean, you look at New Jersey, you're aware. You mentioned Michigan, you're aware. Is that what's happening there, or is this being done to attract more and more people there?
No, there are a tremendous number of Muslims in the North Texas area, in the DFW area, as well as in Houston, Texas. There's a number of very, very large mosques in the Dallas area. I mean, there's 2 large mosques in the city of Plano, very large. You may be familiar with the other mosque. That's where a lot of guys from the Holy Land Foundation attended service.
Really?
Yes, that's correct. So. That's another whole interesting thing. But yeah, I think the big issue here, though, is everybody is entitled to their own beliefs and to be able to practice their faith. But again, when you have an organization that is openly advocating for Palestine and literally the removal of Israel as a country and as a people, you have an organization which is hosting people who have absolute and known documented ties to terrorist organizations like CARE. When you have people who are teaching their children to make those kind of chants and drawing maps like that, it raises some questions. And then when you have a very interesting financing company in there, and then you notice that there are no Jews living in there. Show me a Hindu who's living in there. Show me any Lutherans living in this neighborhood that exist right now. I would love to see them. So that's, again, I'm not making accusations. I'm just pointing out what the facts are.
And you're allowed to. And you see what's happened in and around France and some of these other European countries where they have these enclaves. So it's not like there's not a pattern here or that this isn't systematic. It is systematic. And
it absolutely is systematic. Yeah. And at some point, tolerance becomes enablement. And I don't claim to know exactly where that is, but I know something else. I deeply treasure adherence to the law and the U.S. Constitution and would never advocate anyone violating it. But I will say this also, Mark. The U.S. Constitution is not a suicide pact. And it's not a virtue to turn a blind eye to strange and irregular activity in the name of tolerance, or because you're just not a strong enough leader to ask hard questions. And I think that's probably what has happened here.
And you're not required to check your intelligence at the door either. So Very, very good. Right. And we're going to keep in touch with Lieutenant Douglas Deaton. He's going to be on the program Sunday. You'll be on Life, Liberty, and Levin. I want to thank you, my friend. Appreciate all you've done. Take care of yourself.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you, Mark.
You bet. You too.